there's a saying I've heard before that money loves speed. And when you launch a product on Amazon, the more aggressive you are, and I'll explain what that means, the more chance to have organic rankings. When I say aggressive, it means generating a lot of sales quickly. And so aggressive means, if your competition is pricing at $19.99, you might price at $15 just to get those initial sales. Because the question you need to answer when you launch a product is, why would somebody buy from me? And if you created a product that's very similar to others and they have a lot of reviews, then you're going to need to probably be more aggressive on price. If you came in and you really differentiated with something unique, you still need to be aggressive to get people to buy your product, to get those initial reviews, so that your customers can tell the story of why they like your product better. So when I say aggressive, I mean your PPC, your sponsored ads, are not going to be profitable starting out, right? You're not going to convert as well today when you have 5, 10, 15 reviews, as opposed to when you have 50 or 100 reviews down the line. So when I say aggressive, it means losing money on your sponsored ads. It means pricing aggressively below maybe the market. It means doing all these things. The better job you do at choosing a product, the less of this you have to do, right? The more unique. So when there's two products side by side, the more there's a difference between them, the less the customer can compare apples to apples. You don't want the customer to be able to compare apples to apples, because if they're comparing apples to apples, they're going to look at reviews and price. But if they're comparing apples and oranges, they can't just look at reviews and price. And that's really what you want to get to.
There's this different philosophies going around when you're running out of stock, whether you should lower the price or make it higher or keep it as is. Because, my theory personally was that I should probably keep it as is, because when I get back in stock, I want Amazon to just remember the position that I ran out on. Some people say you should even lower the price to get higher sales by the end, so that it remembers the higher sales. So what's your about that?
Yeah. So what we deal with, and nobody has labeled it this way, and I don't know why. It's an economics issue. It's supply and demand. That's all we're playing with here. And so you have to understand and really, and just keep in mind, this is purely subjective to the seller. What are you optimizing for? Now, for retail arbitrage people who may only have a max of, let's say, 10 units on a single SKU, and once they run out, they're going to optimize for ROI. So they don't care about churning through their inventory as quickly, although they should. We're going to keep that in there. That's my caveat. But that's okay, right? So if you're optimizing for the highest potential ROI, meaning you're willing to wait 30, 60, 90 days for that to happen, your strategy and pricing theory should be completely different than somebody who is like me in wholesale and has hundreds, if not thousands of units. I need high churn, which means I'm willing to give up. And this, I'm going to nerd out a little bit. So this is a theory in finance that we study all the time, just called discounted cash flows. All it basically means is that $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. This is a core principle. I mean, it applies to everything. I'm applying it here. Okay, this is why churn's so high or so important, right? But you have to understand this is your business and it can be subjective. Just because it's the optimal way doesn't mean that it's the perfect way for you, and that's completely okay. So whenever I'm working with sellers on kind of creating a strategy that works for them, I always ask that question. What are you optimizing this strategy to do? Because it's not a one-size-fits-all for the most part. I make some arguments, but that's okay, right? It's your business. It's different. So here's the thing that we do within our tool. We have it set up so whenever you run out of stock, we take your price to your max price. So you kind of mentioned, well, should I lower it because that increases sales potentially, or should I have a higher price so Amazon sees that? We like the higher price, especially for replenishables, right? The main value add here is whenever you come back in stock, you're coming back in at a high price so that we can reprice you back to wherever the buy box currently is. Versus, let's say you went out of stock at $20. The buy box before you came back in stock is now at $25. The moment you go live at $20, you're going to pull the buy box down. You just gave up $5 immediately. So we want to be up here and reprice you down. right? It's kind of the same thing with like cars, right? Whenever you list a car, you list it pretty high, knowing you're going to sell a little bit lower, but you would rather do that than list it, you know, right below or right at the market, because you just know people are going to try to negotiate either way. And Amazon as a platform is kind of designed to push prices down, not up. So we need to start up to work down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I heard somebody say this last year, and it is totally true. In your category, the products that win are going to be the ones that are so differentiated that you can charge a higher price and therefore afford to advertise more than your competitors. And so this is the other side of it. It's a good point, is if your product is not truly differentiated, if your customer doesn't care about your product enough, or you haven't created enough marketing buzz, you don't have enough support behind your brand, your advertising, that kind of thing, then you do not want to compete on price unless you are Walmart. And so I think that's another big failure story, is just sellers not having a product that is differentiated enough to command a premium. Because again, whoever can afford to pay the highest acquisition cost for customers, man, I want to be so profitable with my products that I can afford to outspend my competitor 3-to-1 on advertising, right? I want to be able to command such a premium or have such a good deal on my cost of goods sold that if you're spending $5 a click, I can spend $20 a click and get you to come to my site. Because over the long haul, that's where I'm going to get those lifetime customers. I'm going to build my brand traction. The issue arises when you don't have enough of a differentiated product to actually command that high price in your, and in order to advertise enough, you're having to lose money on every sale. That's really a recipe for disaster.
Quite a few here that we can certainly provide. The one thing we always look at is a product has got to double its money or very close. Because if it doesn't, it's going to take a considerable amount of time to give you something back. So if you've bought a product for, say, $5, you've got to be getting 10 back from it at the end, okay? And then you can pay for the product itself. So you make $5 profit. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to sell it for $10 because you're going to have maybe some sales tax to pay. You're going to have Amazon to pay. You're going to have fulfillment to pay. So work out your numbers that way and do your numbers before you even order a sample. Because there's no point ordering a sample for a product that's never going to be profitable, okay? That's a big key. Whenever you look at the products that you're going to be selling, try to stay away from products under $10, okay? Because the economics just will really, really struggle. Not only that, but it's going to be a more competitive market just by its very nature, okay? If you're looking at something that's maybe $15, $20, at a $20 product, you're certainly going to be able to make $5 or $6 per unit. That is the kind of sweet spot for me. I wouldn't rule out anything over that. That's okay. But I understand a lot of people starting off will not want to get involved in that kind of investment. But certainly, $30, $40, $50 is okay eventually as well. Don't rule out something that's too high per se. Now, whenever you then look at that number, make sure you work out absolutely everything before you order that sample. Take into consideration two things that a lot of people never even talk about. One is the product dimensions of the item that you're looking at and the item weight, because these will tell you a lot of the figures that are in the dark and nobody talks about, because you've got to get that product from, let's say, China or the Far East across to North America or Europe, and then you've got to get it back out the door again to your consumer. So you need to work out your shipping costs into the country, and you've got to work out your shipping costs from Amazon to the consumer. These can all be worked out by the product dimensions and the weight. And then you've got a more overall picture of what that profit on that product is going to look like whenever you go to sell it. So straight away, if you've worked that out, you might find that the product you've done research on just ain't that profitable. So therefore, you've just saved yourself thousands of dollars by investing in it, and you can move on to the next one, which is profitable. And then consider the simple formula that we come up with. It's called the rule of 5. If you just had 5 products in your business and you sold those 5 products in 5 different countries and you sold just 5 units per day of each item in each one of those countries, and you made just $5 profit on each item, you would have a profit figure, not revenue, but profit figure every single month of $18,750, which I'm sure would definitely take you rock climbing or skydiving.